Welcome to the talk I want to present today, and it's part 2 of food sensitivities. Specifically, what we want to look at is how Chinese medicine plays a role in food sensitivities and what happens with our gut. So, the first thing we want to look at is in Chinese elements, there's 5 elements. And throughout the day, the energy should move very smoothly, where it feeds and nourishes different organs of the day. So you can see there's an element of wood. More wood leads to more fire. Fire will affect the earth. Earth, when it's hot, will turn to metal, and that will transport into water. And these elements, if there's any place where there is a problem, it will affect some symptoms in your body. So, for example, when you have the element of wood relates to liver, which is stress, anger, unexpressed emotion, and irritability, more wood will give you more fire. Fire symptoms are inflammation, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed and depressed. So a lot of times when we have feeling depressed, it's not that we might need an antidepressant. We actually need to treat where did the problem come from, which would be wood, and wood is what we need to treat, the liver essentially. Ideally, you want the elements to move in a nice clockwise direction, but sometimes there are things that blocks this direction, and that can create problems as well. There is a cycle of generation and control. It can either be in the region where it creates, but if it's too much, it can overreact, like too much wood, too much fire. Fire can insult water. So when you have more fire, less water, for example, hormonal problems. Or you can have where earth can go the other way and it can insult wood. And from a Chinese medicine point of view, particularly related to food sensitivities, this plays a very important role. IBS, where people are stressed and then they either get constipation, diarrhea, or stomach pain, is mostly related to the problem where we have something called liver qi stagnation. The liver influences earth, which is stomach and spleen. Now, this relates to the energy as well, because if you have too much of your stomach that cannot control what it needs to do, your spleen, the energy is just going to run away from you and you're going to have diarrhea. This is called spleen qi deficiency. So in order for us to treat your IBS, we still need to go back and ask the question, where is it coming from? If it's coming from spleen, which is the Western equivalent to pancreas, we need to eat less sugar, because spleen will insult wood. But if we have anger, anger can affect the earth element, which in turn can affect your digestive system. So food and emotions, very important in treating physical symptoms. The other important thing is to look at the Chinese medicine clock. Fascinating. Each part of your day represents a part where the organ will function at its best. Most patients that do wake up between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. is to do with the sign of the liver. This is typically when people are very stressed. So when people wake up that time, we know we need to address the liver. It's been said that the best time to evacuate your bowels is between 5 and 7 in the morning, because that is when the large intestine is functioning back. So we can use the Chinese medicine clock as well when a person feels worse a particular part of day, to see which organ is out of balance, and we can treat accordingly to that as well. Now, what happens is you have your 5 elements, as just explained, and each element is related to an organ, yin or yang, a sense organ, a tissue, a certain taste, even a color, a sound, an odor, and emotion. So let's go back to the liver, the last one. If you're feeling angry, it's going to affect the liver, which is in effect going to affect your tendons. So a lot of patients who are prone to sport injuries, and their tendons get affected, we need to treat the liver. While the element of earth, which is spleen and stomach, this is a lot where your food sensitivities are in, plays a role. It will affect your muscles, and typically people will say they feel weak in their muscles, they can't recover as well as that they need to, and that's going to affect other symptoms, not just the actual organ. And worry is the emotion that is affecting the stomach and spleen. So the more you worry, the more your tendency to have food sensitivities is greatly increased. So instead of just treating the actual organ, we look at the emotional symptom as well. So detrimental tastes according to the 5-element sequence. If you think back of the picture of the 5 elements I just showed you. Wood, which tends to be the taste of sour, controls earth, and earth is sweet. Sweet benefits wood, so it will help, but the problem is as soon as you eat too much sweet things, it's then going to have a problem on it. So sometimes sweet things, not in the form of refined sweet things, but possibly like fruit and berries, will help your the element of the liver. And what happens is if you've got excess of sour, too much soury foods that you're eating, it will affect your earth element. So diet is a very important part of controlling any food sensitivities in Chinese medicine. Now, when we look at this, how does the immune system and the blood, where does it all come from? If we look at the spleen, which is part of the food that we consume, because spleen transforms and it changes the way that the body uses the food, and with lung, the lung changes into air, and that changes into gathering qi, and the spleen changes into food qi, and that is called gathering qi, also known as zong qi. And gathering qi nourishes the heart and the lungs. It enhances and promotes the lungs' function of controlling qi and respiration, our breathing, and the heart functions of governing blood and blood vessels. It controls speech and the strength of the voice. So a lot of times when people speak very softly or they're very out of breath, they can't finish their sentences, it will be diagnosed as spleen qi deficiency. It affects also your circulation to your extremities, and it is coordinated with original qi to regulate breathing and aid the kidneys. Now, original qi is what you have been born with. This gathering qi then will transport into your true qi, which is 2 of the elements of qi. One is nutritive qi, which is jing qi. It nourishes the internal organs and is also closely linked to the blood vessels, and it flows in channels and in blood vessels. While defensive qi, known as wei qi, is also responsible for your immune system. So now we can see your nutritive qi, the blood, which is part of how everything is transported in your blood and your body. Blood is essential for any healing to take place, and how your immune system, defensive qi, all comes from the way that you breathe and the way that you eat. Very important. When we look at Chinese medicine, the treatment is very individualized and each person is different. And this is obviously related to our environment, our emotions, the food that we consume. So the most common traditional Chinese medicine, TCM diagnosis for food sensitivities, is either weakness of stomach and spleen, which is the earth element, or it could be liver stagnation, liver qi stagnation. A lot of this is due to the emotion, or it could be called mucus accumulation, where the spleen cannot transform the food into usable ingredients and nutrients for your body, and that will create a problem. When your spleen, which is the main one as mentioned before, can be affected by food sensitivity, it's going to affect your thoughts. Thus, it's going to influence our capacity for thinking, studying, concentrating, focusing, and memorizing. And all of these will play a role. So sometimes people don't have the digestive symptoms yet, but they're strong on the emotional stuff. That's why it's so important when you do study to eat good quality food to feed your brain. Because if you eat too much sweet things, it's going to impair your ability to concentrate. And we can also see this plays a very big role in patients with attention deficit disorders. So success for excellent health is to find out where is the imbalance in your body, not just from a physical point of view, but mental and emotional as well. And the key then is to treat the underlying symptoms, the underlying cause, so that that's going to help the body. Thank you so much for listening to part 2 of our food sensitivities. Part 1 is available on our blog, askdrdebbie.com, and part 3 will address how do we now treat if there's any imbalance.